Welcome to For Your Consideration at General Synod 35. We are talking today about proposed amendments to the United Church of Christ Constitution and bylaws. My name is Julia Gahn. My pronouns are she, her, and her, and I am the chair of the United Church of Christ Board of Directors. And so as we get started, what I'd love to do is have you all just take a quick glance at the agenda, and then we're going to move into some introductions. So today, my fellow panelists, we will all introduce ourselves. My colleague Janice Murray will open us in prayer. Then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Kate West to talk about the proposed changes regarding director terms. Then we'll have some time in Q&A specifically around the director term proposed changes. And then I'm going to take the mic back and spend some time going over the proposed changes that connect to unified governance. And then we'll have time for question and answer around those proposed changes at the end. And then, of course, we'll close in prayer. So that's what we're here to do today. For folks who've just logged on, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Please use the Q&A button to submit questions so that we can be sure to have those addressed during the course of our time together. And you can access the closed captioning as well. So with that, like I said, I'm Julia Gahn, she, her pronouns. I am in Lenexa, Kansas. I am an authorized minister and a member in discernment in the Kansas-Oklahoma Conference, and I have been serving on the board since 2019. So it has been my joy and privilege to serve for the last 2 years as the chair of the UCC Board of Directors. And again, welcome everyone this afternoon. All right, Janice.
Hello, everyone. This is Janice Murray. I am calling in from Baltimore, Maryland, where my home church is New Covenant Community United Church of Christ, and we're located in the Central Atlantic Conference. I've been on the board, I think 2021. I should know this, but anyway, somewhere around there, and am part of the governance committee of the board. So happy to be with everyone today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kate West. She, her pronouns. I am the senior pastor at First Congregational Church in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, which is 50 miles north of the Dells in the middle of cranberry country. I am part of the class that was selected to the board in 2023, so at our last General Synod. I am also on the governance committee and couple other things here. So I'm excited to be with you all. And thanks for joining us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Brunton. I'm calling in from Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is in the Philadelphia metropolitan area in Pennsylvania. I have been serving on the board, filling an unexpired term since 2023, and will be joining for a full term in the next situation, next General Synod. I'm happy to be here with you today, and I hope that this is going to be helpful. I've been serving on the governance committee for just about a year, and it's been exciting. So thanks.
All right, and then we're going to now invite Janice to open us up in prayer.
Thank you, Julia. Let us just take some time to center our hearts and our minds and just be present with each other and with God. Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather today, and we ask for your guidance and wisdom as we begin this call, that everyone here finds the time spent together to be valuable and to be informative, and that the discussion is handled with care and respect. We are grateful for all who have taken the time to either lead this call or to be a part of this call. And we pray for those who desire to be here, but for whatever reason are unable to do so. We look forward to a productive, respectful, and informative discussion, and we ask your guidance and wisdom in making that so. It is in your name that I pray. Amen.
Well, this is Kate again, and I'm going to kind of maybe steer the ship a little bit here for this first opening part, talking about two separate votes, but we're going to kind of talk about them together because they talk about proposed changes to director terms. So first off, just a little history and just refreshing our memories. In Indianapolis in 2023, we voted on some changes to the Constitution and bylaws for the denomination. And the terms for the UCCB directors stated that our term lengths would be for 3 General Synods. Now, before we changed the length of General Synod to be 3 years, that meant that we would serve 3 General Synods that were 2 years apart from each other, and it would be a total of 6 years. With the changes that we voted and approved in Indianapolis, that means that unless we change the term lengths, UCCB directors would then serve 9 years. And we heard a lot of great feedback at General Synod in Indianapolis that people had multiple concerns about will we be able to recruit folks who would be able to make that 9-year commitment? That seemed like a really long time. There were some concerns that folks had about that seems like too few people have too much power and those types of things. And so the board of directors formed a subcommittee to talk about these changes and to talk about the feedback and to kind of come up with a plan of how can we adjust things. Because we had already elected our next couple classes for board of directors. And then separately, our United Church Funds has been working on their own policies and procedures as well, and they have requested a change. So we're going to talk about these a little bit separately, and just as a reminder that both of these votes will require 2/3 majority to pass in Kansas City when we meet this summer. So let's go to our next slide, and we'll talk about the UCCB changes that are going to happen if this motion passes. So basically what we have come up with, there wasn't a perfect solution to make these transitions from the folks that we've already elected to this new system of what we're proposing. It was either going to require that our nominating committee have to come up with a really large new class of folks, which is we're having a hard time getting nominations. So shameless plug that if you would like to serve the larger denomination, you're always welcome to nominate someone or yourself to serve at the national level as well. So this is a diagram, and it will be included in the information that gets sent out with the recording. It's also, I think, already available in some of the information that's gone out regarding General Synod. So we're going to change some terms. So I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm one of the board members that I was originally elected to be in the class of 2031. That would be when my term would expire and I'd have to sit out. I'm going to get moved to being the new class of 2028 if these changes go into effect. So I will technically have a shorter term than what I initially agreed to. And then we will then move forward with a new class of 2031 and going forward for the every 3 years. This allows for the nominating committee to have not quite as many people that they would need to recruit in 2031. So hopefully this diagram kind of explains how some of the shifts will be and how many people will be elected in which years and those types of things. There is one caveat. My class, the original class of 2031, which will become the new class of 2028, can have up to 6 folks that can stay on into 2031 if they are like the president of the board or chairing one of our bigger committees, so like governance, finance, those types of committees, just so we retain some of the institutional knowledge. And we're also not just throwing new folks directly into, we need folks to automatically become vice chairs or chairs of these very important committees. It gives them a little bit of time to be onboarded and to really kind of understand all of the lingo, the things that have happened and why we've come to where we are. So that hopefully this will kind of ease some of the burden and some of the transition, but also be responsive to the will of the General Synod that had the concerns about 9 years and those types of things. I think there's one more slide. Yes. So this will also affect the General Synod nominating committee as well, and in the work that they will be doing. And so you'll kind of see this slide here talks about the elections and the things that they'll be working for. We'll have a transitional class of 3 members that'll be elected in 2028. That'll help with the transition. And we'll have a full class for the nominating committee that'll be elected in 2034. So again, this is just changes that we got in feedback from General Synod that, you know, the board was really appreciative of, and we took it very seriously and tried to come up with the best solution that we could for where we find ourselves. So I hope that that kind of explains and gives a little bit of insight into our thought process of how we're trying to move forward with that process. The other group that we'll be voting on is from UCF, or United Church Funds. And this change comes directly from that board. And they're looking to decouple their terms from General Synod, just so their director terms will be a specific 6-year length of time. So the amount of time that folks will serve as a director is going to be the same, but it's just not going to be dependent on General Synod and those types of things. And as a board, we talked about this, and we take very seriously the recommendations we get from all of our umbrella groups that are under the UCCB. And we don't want to hinder anybody's work. We want to make sure that people have the freedom and the things that they need to do, the work that is before them that they're charged with doing. And it just seemed to make sense for the UCF in particular to have this change go into effect. So I think that's all the slides, and that's the quick version of a lot of months of discussion. Are there questions? Reminder that you can use the question and answer feature. We do have Heather Kimmel here as well. She is legal counsel for the United Church of Christ. So if there's a question that any of us panelists can't answer, we also have Heather to help us. And we're very, very thankful for Heather. So I think I see that there are 2 questions. Is there a link for openings available to serve at the national level? It's a very good question.
And that's something that Andrea is just dropping in the chat. So thank you, Andrea, for taking care of that. So there is a link in the chat to ucc.org, who we are, Career Opportunities for openings at the National Ministries of the United Church of Christ.
Yes. And if you're also interested in serving like on the nominating committee or the board, there is a nominating timeframe, and information gets communicated on our website and also through like the UCC Digest newsletters, e-blasts that come out. So be looking for those as well. And also it doesn't hurt to talk to like your conference staff, ministers, associate conference ministers, and say, hey, I might be interested. Because they also get reminders of like nomination process and those types of things are open. So it's always a good thing. I see another question is, what is the general sentiment of people serving now and these proposed changes? I think there's a little bit of relief. I know that even though I knew I was going to have a long term when I agreed to be a part of the original class of 2031, I was still kind of doing the like 9 years is a lot. And yeah, so I think most of us are, I hope that I'm not over speaking for other folks, but I think folks are okay with this. And we understand the changes and the challenges. And we know that this isn't the perfect solution, but it's the best solution we can find in compromising and coming to consensus with everyone. So it's a great question.
And Kate, I'll add just a couple additional comments to that. When we began this particular term of the board in our October, it was either our October 2023 or March 2024 meeting, and now they're kind of blurring together. We had an open conversation as a board, a generative conversation, to talk about the response that we received from General Synod with respect to the director terms and the length that they were after the change in General Synod frequency. And from that, we took all of that generative conversation, handed it to a task force to really dive into all of the potential options. And then kind of following that piece, heard from that task force with their recommendations, and voted on these particular proposals in October of 2024. So we really spent a good amount of time hearing from board members, talking through possibilities, and from the board perspective, this was something that was well received and well supported. And so we hope that we are both responsive to the concerns that were raised, while at the same time also really kind of offering up what we view as the best possible option, addressing those concerns and also addressing the concerns of the existing board members. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Thanks. It seems like October last fall was like years away, but also it was only like 6 months ago. So it's one of those both ands. Let's see, the next questions I see. Can new resolutions still be added? Are there restrictions on what topics can be included in amendments? Are there specific dates and times during Synod when each of the resolutions will be introduced and voted on? So your first question, can new resolutions still be added? It's a yes or no answer. We can make emergency resolutions, but there are criteria that has to meet to be deemed an emergency resolution. So depending on what the resolution is addressing, there is a possibility that something could be added, but there is a process. If you are interested in submitting something like that, you would need to reach out to national staff to talk about that, and we can get you links and those types of things. Amendments to resolutions, all of the resolutions will go to committees for education and possible refining of all of the resolutions that come before General Synod. I don't know when the committee assignments will come out, usually closer to General Synod, but everyone who is a registered delegate generally gets assigned to be on one of those resolution committees and can work on those types of things. So more information will be coming. I feel bad that that's kind of the answer, but that's the truth. More information will be coming as we get closer to General Synod, and specific dates and timings during Synod when each of the resolutions will be introduced and voted on. Yes, there will be a docket that we will follow, and we hope to stick to it, but sometimes the Spirit moves us in a variety of ways at General Synod, and we get through some things quicker than we anticipated, and other times we feel like we need to maybe spend more time in discussion and have questions and those types of things with each other, so it may take longer. So more information will come out and be sent to delegates as well as we get closer to that. Let's see, I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. Reasonable pushback from these proposed changes. I have not really heard of any pushback. I've not experienced from any of the board members about this. These amendments will not be going to committee as they are not resolutions. Correct. You are correct. They will not go to a committee, but they will be have time to be discussed during the business sessions. Will business sessions be available online? No. Correct. Is that correct? Someone? I don't think, are we live streaming business sessions at General Synod?
That's a great question. And so I am hoping to hear from Heather very quickly. So we will work on finding out the answer to that.
Yes, I can answer that. So the plenary sessions for General Synod are going to be live streamed, but those are not participatory sessions. So folks can watch the plenaries, but cannot participate online. Committee sessions are not live streamed.
Thanks, Heather. This is why we pay Heather the big bucks to be our national counsel. Are youth members attending allowed to vote? If they are a youth delegate and registered as a delegate, yes. But if you're just coming to do the youth track, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are a delegate with voting credentials. So check your registration to see how that will play out. I don't remember the total resolutions that are coming before us. These are not resolutions, but they will be a vote. Are there 11 resolutions? 9, 11. I know it's an odd number, but
I'm going to see if I can look it up.
thank you. This is why we have some other great folks who will find answers while we continue talking. The who we are / career opportunities link appears to the job. Link to a form or portal to self-nominate or nominate others for the UCCB. I don't believe that portal is open right this moment because there is a time frame that that the nominating committee has to do their work as laid out in the Constitution and ByLaws. So it is passed for this current General Synod. However, as I mentioned before, please, if you are interested, reach out to any of us that are panelists today, Heather, national staff, and also talk to your conference minister so that when the time comes for that to be reopened, when the nominating committee starts taking applications, or if we have an opening for a variety of reasons that should come up in between General Synods, we have a list of names that we can reach out and say, hey, could you express interest and we'd like to know more about you and those types of things. So will committee assignments be publicly available? You will get committee assignments shortly. I know that folks are working on that because not every committee has, or not every conference, excuse me, has solidified all of their delegates just yet. So that will come for sure. Okay, I'm trying to see if I missed any questions. We're still looking for your answer on how many resolutions there will be.
So I just found there's currently 9 resolutions.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. If there's not.
Thank you so much, Kate. I don't see other questions in here yet.
Yeah, you can go ahead and type them into the Q&A and we'll keep monitoring that as we're going to turn it back over to Julia and we're going to move on with our presentation.
Before we move on, I don't know if it was mentioned because I was scrolling looking for resolutions. Heather put a link in the chat where the resolutions are posted.
All right. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Heather.
So
and
folks
thank you
get a
so
little
much.
bit more information. Thank you, Heather.
All right. And so just again, to clarify, there are 9 resolutions and the proposed Constitution and ByLaws changes are separate from the resolutions. So these are kind of 3 separate bodies of changes. The 2 items that Kate was just talking about are proposed bylaws changes. So there will be one vote about the proposed change to the director terms for United Church funds, and there will be one vote about the proposed changes to the director terms for the United Church of Christ Board and the General Synod Nominating Committee. So those are also posted at generalsynod.org, not under the resolutions button, but under the proposed Constitution and bylaws changes that are listed in the business portion. So again, all of that information is on generalsynod.org. And if we need to clarify anything that we've said so far, again, please feel free to put that in the Q&A. Easy for us to see that. I'm now going to talk more about the proposed changes that are connected to unified governance. And this, again, is two separate votes. There are proposed changes to the Constitution, and there are proposed changes to the bylaws. And each item requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. Once, if these pass at General Synod, once that passage has occurred, the Constitution amendments have to be ratified by 2/3 of the conferences at their annual meetings between General Synod 2025 and General Synod 2028. The amendments have to be ratified before the proposed changes could become effective. So again, from a governance standpoint, from a structural space, we will first at General Synod take action on the proposed changes to the Constitution, and then once that has occurred, then we will take action on the proposed changes to the bylaws that all fall into this unified governance group of changes. One of the most important things, and certainly a question that we've heard from several folks, the proposed changes do not impact the elections of associate general ministers at this summer's General Synod or in 2026. We have a nominee. We have Sherry Presteman, who is our current acting Associate General Minister for Love of Neighbor, who has been nominated to serve as Associate General Minister for Love of Neighbor. And so we will vote on her election at General Synod this summer. There is also a position open for the Associate General Minister for Love of Church. And although we conducted a search, we did not identify a candidate. And so we will reopen that search process after General Synod and bring a candidate to be voted on by General Synod through a specially called General Synod online, hopefully in early 2026. So we are still voting on these Associate General Minister candidates because if we do make these changes, right, they won't become effective until those changes have been ratified by the conferences. With the proposed changes, we will still have associate general ministers, and they will continue to attend to their bodies of work. Our associate general ministers are vital to our United Church of Christ and are very important to our national ministries. The big change is that upon ratification, the associate general ministers will no longer be elected by the General Synod or serve as directors on the United Church of Christ Board of Directors. And the reason that these changes have been proposed relates to the long history of unified governance that has been undertaken over the course, really, of the last 25 plus years. Back in 1957, when the United Church of Christ formed, the national ministries of the United Church of Christ consisted of a number of different corporate entities that joined together. These corporate entities were successor organizations to a large number of other organizations, again, associated with the denominations that preceded the United Church of Christ. Since 1957, there have been at least 11 instrumentalities or 11 corporate entities. And within corporate structure, you need to have a president of a corporation, and then you have other officers of the corporation, and you have boards for the corporation. And so again, over the course of our UCC history, there have been at least 11 instrumentalities. And then in 2000, we began a restructure, and this restructure resulted in the covenanted ministries. So we went from those 11 plus instrumentalities down to 4 corporations who we know as the covenanted ministries: Justice and Witness Ministries, Local Church Ministries, the Office of General Ministries, and Wider Church Ministries. So with the covenanted ministries in this restructure in 2000, each ministry retained its own governance structure. So Justice and Witness Ministries had a president and a board. Local church ministries had a president and a board, and so on and so forth. And so again, this was still a big undertaking. Yes, we narrowed down from that wide range of instrumentalities, but we still had a very heavy governance structure. When we think about all of the different work we do now to nominate the folks to serve on one board, multiply that by that 4 or 5 number, and it is a big governance challenge. So in 2000, following this restructure, there was a request from General Synod. General Synod resolved to the covenanted ministries, to the boards of the covenanted ministries, to propose unified governance, to propose a way to make this all into one board. And so in 2013, the United Church of Christ Board became the single board for the covenanted ministries. And when that occurred, the general minister and president became the named president for each of those corporations, so separate corporations within the covenanted ministries. So since 2013, the general minister and president has been the president of all of the covenanted ministries. And so each executive minister was named vice president of those corporations. So again, we had a shift in corporate structure, shift in corporate language as we undertook this unified governance piece. Now, again, lots of things I have just said, and I really appreciate the comments that are coming up about the challenge of summarizing this. So thank you, Carol. I really appreciate being seen in this moment. And yes, thank you, Ivy. This is a lot of information. This is also in the FAQ and the summary document on our generalsynod.org page, which Andrea linked to earlier. In 2017, we really get into the current structure of the United Church of Christ National Ministries. And in 2017, General Synod voted to eliminate the Collegium of Officers, which unified executive leadership within the General Minister and President's office. And so at that point in time, prior to 2017, we had executive ministers. After 2017, our associate general ministers replaced the executive ministers. The other thing that happened with 2017 is as the executive leader, the general minister and president, became the primary person holding accountability for human resource decisions, for budget decisions, and for assigning to the associate general ministers their various portfolios of work. And so at this point in time, the general minister and president became the functional supervisor for our associate general ministers, even though the associate general ministers continued to be elected by General Synod and continued to serve on the board of directors. Functionally, this also means that the general minister and president, who is the chief executive officer for the national ministries, had people supervising the general minister and president who were also supervised by the general minister and president. And so when we think about kind of structurally the challenges there, that kind of indicates from a governance structure, that is out of line with best practices for corporate governance structure. And I know that we are a church, and hearing the corporate language is complicated. And at the same time, this is also how we are structured so that we might maintain our nonprofit status, right? Because we're a corporate entity. So again, our associate general ministers, they receive supervision from the general minister and president, and their portfolios of work are determined by the general minister and president. The board holds the general minister and president accountable for all of this, right? For the covenanted ministries, for their budgets, for all of the human resources decisions that are made, and for how the work is being done. And then therefore, the general minister and president is to hold the general minister and president's staff, the staff of the national ministries, accountable for those various bodies of work. Now, because of the switch in governance in 2017, there are residual components of the former structures that continue to exist that impede unified governance. And kind of expanding upon what I was just mentioning, the associate general ministers are not held accountable by General Synod for the budgets or the human resources decisions of the covenanted ministries. And so, they are no longer corporate officers, so their election is no longer necessary under good governance structure practices. And this is why we have brought these proposed constitution and bylaws changes, really to align ourselves with good governance structure practices, to clarify those streams of accountability, and to really kind of make ourselves as best functioning of an organization as we can with these governance pieces. We have continued to change in so many ways since 1957, and certainly we will continue to change past 2025. But again, we're trying to line ourselves with where we are in this moment so that we can be governing in the most effective way. General Synod currently holds that accountability for the general minister and president and will continue to do so, frankly, with greater clarity with these proposed changes. And our associate general ministers continue to retain their portfolios of work and their important positions within the life of the United Church of Christ. And so, again, continuing to do this, I see a few questions that are popping up. And I think, yep, there we are. We're at the question piece. There's a question what if there are no's at General Synod or during ratification? So with this question, there's a couple of different places where those no's can happen. With the proposed constitutional changes, if General Synod does not adopt the proposed changes, if they vote no on those changes, then as the board chair, what I am seeking authorization to do, which I anticipate being granted, I will withdraw the proposed bylaws amendments that are connected to the unified governance piece. So if that is voted no, that will happen. If we vote to enact the constitutional changes and the amendments are voted down, so the amendments do not pass, then we will need to bring new proposed bylaws amendments in 2028 because the Constitution and bylaws will not be aligned. The other thing that will have to happen, right, is there needs to be ratification of constitutional changes by 2/3 of the conferences. So if in the course of 2025 to 2028, if both the Constitution and bylaws changes pass, if the changes to the Constitution are not ratified by 2/3 of the conferences, then those changes do not take effect. And so that means at some point in time, a future board will need to reevaluate whether to bring proposed changes and what those changes might look like. We will continue to be out of line with good governance practices, but again, that's the work of the board is to develop and propose for the General Synod how we might do this governance work most effectively for General Synod. So hopefully that helps answer the question if there are no's at General Synod or during ratification. The next question is, will the AGMs elected during this year serve on the UCCB if the changes are ratified? So the AGMs that are up for election this year, they will have a place, they will have a spot on the United Church of Christ Board of Directors, and that spot will remain in effect unless and until the proposed changes are adopted and ratified. So if they start serving on the board as an elected associate general minister, but the changes are accepted and ratified, then once those changes become effect, they will no longer serve on the board of directors. They will continue to be associate general ministers. And so that's how that change will switch. So hopefully that clarifies that question. The next question is, who will select the AGMs? So if these changes are adopted and ratified, we will continue to engage in search processes. So the person, though, that will be in charge of that process will be the general minister and president. Currently, when the national ministries are undertaking searches for other positions, other hired positions, they bring in a combination of existing staff as well as at times board members, at times other interested parties. It depends on the particular position. But the general minister and president will lead that search process as opposed to the United Church of Christ Board of Directors. So that's how that search process will change. There's a question about, has resistance been expressed at any level so far? And the phrase resistance is an interesting one. There's certainly been, as a board, we had good conversation around this, evaluated a lot of different things. I have received some questions, some comments, and I think mostly people have a lot of curiosity. I have certainly received some resistance, some people who disagree that this is the way that to proceed forward. And I encouraged those folks to come to General Synod if they're a delegate, so that they can continue to engage in this conversation. So now in terms of, I don't know how to talk about that at multiple levels. So hopefully that helps answer that question. The next question. So the next question is, understanding that GMP and AGM authority power have shifted functionally, the UCC's theology of shared authority hasn't shifted. Can you speak to the UCCB's prospective theology on what shared authority in the national ministries of the UCC looks like in the current and proposed consolidation of leadership? And so I have a short answer and a long answer for that. With this, right, there is not a change between what's current and what's proposed in terms of the shared authority for the United Church of Christ. And my reason for stating this is that shared authority exists between the national ministries, between the General Synod and the United Church of Christ Board acting as General Synod, and our conferences and local churches. So that shared authority still exists across these various settings of the church. That change between AGM and GMP authority, that has already shifted. That changed when we unified governance and the general minister and president became the president of all of the covenanted ministries, previously. This change doesn't change in terms of shared authority. We retain that shared authority between the United Church of Christ, the national ministries, the General Synod, with United Church of Christ acting as as United Church of Christ Board of Directors acting as General Synod when General Synod's not in session, and then our conferences and our local churches. So that shared authority remains in effect. There is a statement that this feels like a lot of power in the office of the General Minister and President. And as I've stated before, this is not a change in terms of power. This is not a change in terms of that structure. It is a clarification about how we already do governance, so that we might live more fully into the unified governance that the UCC has been pursuing since 2000. So, this, I don't believe that that is a change in this. There is a question, is there a nonprofit board, and how are the members selected? Yes, the United Church of Christ Board of Directors is the nonprofit board. We are the board of directors for the corporate entities, for the covenanted ministries, and the members are elected by General Synod. They are selected by the General Synod nominating committee, and in terms of applying for that, being nominated for that, that process is undertaken by the General Synod nominating committee. Typically, when those applications are open, when those nomination processes are open, the national ministries puts out a call to the wider church, both in news and directly to the conferences, to Quorum, and to a number of other historically underrepresented groups, to really try and receive those nominations so that our General Synod nominating committee has a large group of nominees to review and propose to General Synod for election. So yes, there's a nonprofit board, and that board is United Church of Christ Board of Directors. One second, I'm going to pause for a moment because I've got some allergies, and then I will answer this next question. All right, thank you for that. If you know anything about Kansas in the springtime, it is allergy season here. The next question says, are any of these changes related to the Article 2 changes? I support the Article 2 changes, and I recall that those who oppose the changes warned that the bylaws would be changed next and lead to less autonomy for congregations. Now, I'm going to need to just double check which thing I'm looking at. So one moment, please.
Julia, I can help with this also if you would like.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Heather.
So these proposed changes, there are no changes to either Article 2 of the Constitution or Article 2 of the bylaws being proposed at this General Synod. Article 2 of the Constitution is our structure provision, and then Article 2 of the bylaws is the provision that deals with associations and conferences, and there aren't any changes being proposed currently to those.
Thank you, Heather. I thought there weren't any changes, but I just wanted to double check before I responded. So I really appreciate your assistance. So again, there are no changes proposed to Article 2. And so this does not have an impact as being asked about. All right, what additional questions might be out there? We'll give this a moment to see if any come up. They could be about the director terms. They could be about the unified governance proposed Constitution and bylaws changes. We're happy to answer what additional questions there might be. All right. Well, I will continue to leave this open. I do want to thank everybody for being here today and for asking your questions. I'm hopeful that we were able to answer with clarity, and I'm happy to continue to respond, as are my fellow UCCB board members that are here. We have put a lot of time and attention and intention into this on behalf of the life of the church that we all care so deeply about. And so I think, again, as I'm talking to give more time for people to ask questions if they have them, I'm not seeing those come up. I will mention again that this recording will become available. We'll circulate this out. Please visit generalsynod.org to review all of the resolutions along with these proposed changes and our frequently asked questions document that are available up this. Somebody mentions, as a new member of the UCC, I find this fascinating. I do not know how I got on this list to be invited to attend this. We are glad that you are here, and yes, it is pretty fascinating. It sounds like you might be interested in future board service, so let me once again encourage you to apply when those things become open. I would like to offer us a prayer in closing. And what I'm doing for this prayer, at last General Synod, the Still Speaking Writers Group published stating our faith in urgent times. And this is a restatement of our statement of faith in all sorts of creative ways. And I think this is a beautiful way for us as people who love and cherish Jesus and do so through the United Church of Christ. I think this is a beautiful way for us to close. So please join me in the spirit of prayer. We believe in you, God, beyond all names, love unending. Everything comes from you. Nothing falls outside your care. You command justice and judge with mercy. Made in your image, we are your delight. We believe in you, Christ Jesus, Mary's child, one with God and us. You went through the world doing good. You loved the company of sinners and called us friends. You spoke truth to the mighty. We killed you on a cross. You pardoned us with your last breath. In deepest mystery, God gave you new life, the life we live when we follow you. We believe in you, Holy Spirit, wind and flame. You give insight and dreams, bold words, resilience and courage for each day. You bind us in love. Your presence is joy. Your light leads us home. Claimed in the waters, fed at the table, surrounded by saints, we resist evil, love our neighbors, and forgive our enemies, so that the world might know that you are good. God beyond all names, Christ Jesus, Holy Spirit, one, loving, and just. Amen. Grace and peace to you all, and have a beautiful rest of your day.